That's a good girl. Hi, Annie. Hello. Good girl. Hi. Hey there. How you doing? Good girl. Come here. Why? How's it going? Oh, that's good. You're being a good protector. That's something we want, isn't it? That's real good. She's unfamiliar with who's on our property. When she came out, and she let us know that she's not sure about this. I need to tell you guys something. So that's a real good. That's a nice instinct. We like that. Good. Good girl. Wait for me. So that was a good example of what we like a young farm dog to do when she encounters somebody that she's unfamiliar with. Now, she's met Dan, our camera guy, before, but the way he was holding the camera and the position we were in, she didn't recognize him. That was real good. She told us, hey, there's something going on here I'm not sure about, and I want to tell you about it. And she let him know she wasn't sure about him. And she's just a young pup still, but really good example of something we like to see in a farm dog. And so today, being that we've got a fairly new young pup here, Annie, come here. Come on, good girl, come here. Sit, good sit. She's in training, obviously. We've been thinking a lot about dogs. They're a crucial part of our homestead. And so I thought we'd talk a little bit about what to look for in a homestead dog or a farm dog. Dogs on the homestead are crucial. They're very important. Just about every homestead should have one. Yet there's a lot of reasons why, and the type of dog and the right dog for you. There's a lot of questions to ask and things to look for. Let's dive into that a little bit. You realize you're on the camera, you got to stay here and hang out. You got to stay here and hang out. Hey Gus, come here. You're a good dog. You can come hang out too. Good boy. Good boy. What I would say is step one is to identify what you need in a dog. The character, it's not the breeds. Don't worry about the breeds first. You want to first think about what is it you're looking for a dog, what is the dog's purpose on the homestead. We want a dog that's going to guard a bit, okay, that's important for most of us, and that's going to let us know when there's a stranger here or something going on that's not right. Ideally, they're even going to be in tune to the property, and they're going to let us know if something's going wrong on the property. So it's not necessarily a human intruder or even an animal or a predator intruder. It might be that some animals got out or you know, there's some activity that's happening. We want the kind of dog that is going to let us know about that. We want a dog certainly that the extension of that is going to work well with the livestock, being around the livestock, act appropriately. They're having fun playing. He's daddy, by the way. And he's a good daddy. He's getting old. He's very patient with her, and so you love that in an old dog. He's being a good dog, showing her the ropes and teaching her how to behave, and yet putting up with all her childish behavior. You want an appropriate dog for your homestead and for your needs. I see a lot of people thinking about getting livestock guardian dogs, and that can be really good. A livestock guardian dog's job is to guard the livestock, usually 24/7, and they don't always mix well with the family dog or with the person guard dog or other things. And so you've really got to think about what's the job of your dog on the homestead. For us, it's less specific livestock guardian. We want a dog that's going to tell us about people coming and going. We live remote, we have a big piece of property, so we do want a little bit of that guard dog. We want them friendly, but we do want them assertive and vocal, okay? And knowing when, you know, when they need to really say, hey, there's a problem here, or tell somebody else, that intruder, that there's a problem. Say the animals get out or something's out of place in the movement. Dogs can let you know about that. That can get them restless. That can get them talking sometimes. That's a good thing. It might help you find out there's a problem before it becomes a worse problem. Of course, for us, we've got kids, we've got a lot of people coming, so we want a dog that can do that, yet still be very friendly with the kids, good to the kids, can be social, and can learn the difference between all the people going on our homestead that are friends and people working or whatever, and somebody that maybe needs to be questioned. So that's a good part of their personality. Do you want an indoor or outdoor dog? The homestead needs an outdoor dog. We like both. So we like a dog. We like to have a couple dogs, another part of the discussion, but we like at least one male intact dog outdoors at all times. 2 is better, especially on a larger homestead if you have large predators around. We also like 1 dog that sleeps inside at night. So we don't really want a full inside dog, but we do like a dog that sleeps inside. That's going to be this little girl's job here, Annie. She sleeps by our bedside. One of the main reasons for that is you don't always hear the dogs outside. She's going to tell us if something's going on outside that she hears, or she hears Gus here getting excited about. So that's what works for us, but I would recommend for a homestead that you have at least 1 male intact dog outside all the time. The reason for a male intact dog is they're going to have a little more assertiveness. I would say aggressiveness. You don't want a necessarily aggressive dog, but you do want an assertive dog. And they're going to be more territorial. They're gonna have a little more intent about their space. We've got grizzly bears, black bears, wolves, mountain lions, coyotes. We've got everything here, and we have 0 pressure on our property. That is because historically we've had 2 male intact dogs, at least 1, but on this property we came in with 2. Right now we've just got 1 because 1 died. But that intact male is important, and I would rather have that and then control my perimeter, control that dog from breeding with other neighbors or whatever you have to do. That's my suggestion. That works for us out here. Again, you may have other circumstances where that's not needed, but I have found it very, very valuable, even though it can create some management challenges depending on where you live and if that dog, if you have a lot of other female dogs around. So you got to think about that part of managing things. You also need a dog that is going to interact well with your livestock. Now, most dogs can be trained, but some dogs are easier than others. Certain dogs are bred to be around livestock. You know, you want a dog that's going to be around your livestock well. Any livestock you have on the farms, whether that's chickens, goats, cows, rabbits, obviously cats, whatever it is, you want them to be able to get along with all of that livestock and know how to behave around it, know when to leave it alone, and ideally learn a little bit when to help you out with them. That's a bonus. That's not an essential, but that is a bonus and very, very helpful. One of the reasons you want a dog outside all the time, besides guarding for like predators that are going to prey on your other animals or potential threats through people to your property, you want a dog that might help with some of your animal pressures in other ways that are non-predatory to your animals, but are maybe predatory to your garden. This is a question I get a lot about dealing with deer in the garden or raccoons or different things. There's lots of solutions. Nothing works like a good outside male dog to keep the deer out of your garden, to keep the raccoons at bay. And I'll give you an example. We live out here, we live a long ways out of town. When we bought this property, there were deer coming on regularly because the older people fed them. There were turkeys. They're nice to see, but they're hard on some things. They told us we were going to have bears in the front yard. We came on the property with 2 male dogs. We've never had any problems because those 2 male dogs, you know, claimed the property as we led them around. And so we don't have the deer pressure on our garden or on our fruit trees, and we don't have the little critters. This kind of extends into cats too, for the even smaller critters that the dogs might not go after, but we're talking dogs today. They're an essential part of a homestead. Now, they also bring good companionship. I mentioned a minute ago about them being good with people and kids coming and going. You need to know yourself, how much companionship do you want? Do you want a dog that's a little aloof and just does their job on the homestead? Or do you want a dog that does all that and yet is still a good part of the family? And you have to know, because some breeds are very good guard dog breeds, but they're not super personable. Some livestock guardian dogs are excellent at being livestock guardian dogs, but they're not going to be the best being around the family, or they're not going to do both well as often. What happens? You've got shepherds that are really, really good at out working cattle, out all day. They're high energy. They're great out there, but they're going to chew everything up and be too high energy, possibly, for your homestead. So these are the things you need to think through before you ever even go looking for a dog or even thinking about a breed, so that you know what is it that's going to suit you well on your homestead. Let's talk about breeds. I am not going to recommend a breed. We've had a few different breeds. I have my favorite, which are Australian Shepherds, as you see. But you need to take what it is you're looking for in an animal, know the purposes that dog is going to do, And again, thinking past just a family pet, but what's the job that dog has to do? And go look for the breed that's best going to line up with that. That's the starting place. Breed alone doesn't get you there, but that gives you a place to start thinking about what dog is suited for you. One other element in choosing a breed and then these character traits you are looking for is the climate and environment that you live in. You don't want a heavy coated wintry dog that maybe suits all your purposes well, but you live in a warm environment. That's going to be hard on the dog. That's going to cause you some health challenges and some things. So you do need to take these other pieces and line them up with a good environment of the dogs, particularly short hair versus long hair, and the environment that those dogs were bred to be in. Most dogs out there today, while we tend to think of them as pets, historically, dogs have had a job to do. They've had a role with humanity besides being a social partner. And so those breeds all have histories. They all have purposes. Once you find a few breeds that you're interested in, you want to start seeing if you can find those in your area. And you want to start seeing if those people are raising those breeds, those dogs, in a way that's suited to what you're doing and their natural characteristics. It's really important to find somebody that's breeding. When they're breeding the dog, they aren't doing a good job of just having that breed, but they're working with and breeding that dog for the purposes that it was made and that you're going to use it. What happens a lot today, because dogs are more and more pets and they've moved away from their role, their intended breeding that gave us all these different breeds originally, is that they're breeding for conformation, they're breeding, maybe just to be good at the home, all these registry and different types of things, but they're not necessarily breeding dogs that are acting in the environment for which they were originally developed and for which you want them in your homes. I can find Australian Shepherds anywhere, but they've become so popular that a lot of them are raised in small yards, raised in kennels. They might have very good lineage and papers, and they're registered, and their conformation is beautiful, but their parents, grandparents, the lineage of that dog necessarily hasn't been in the environment that we're going to put them in, so they don't have those characteristics still bred into them. They might have the looks and some of the temperament, but they don't have all of that. So you really want to try to find somebody that's breeding a dog and living similar to the way you're going to live with your dog and has maintained those other characteristics besides, the way they look and their basic personality. You also want a breeder that's obviously taking good care of the animals. Their facilities are clean, the animals are healthy, things are in order. They don't have to be registered. I would not get hung up on registry. That is not important unless you are going to start breeding dogs. Not to disparage anybody that's registering dogs, but we see a lot of Aussies that are registered and highly papered and all this stuff, but they're not in the environment that suits us. They're not being bred for that. Just make sure there's lots of consistency there and that they're taking good care of their animals. Let's talk about actually getting down to choosing the dog that's right for you. You've got a breed or maybe a couple breeds that you're really interested in that you think are suited. You've looked around. You've hopefully found some breeders that are close to what you want, that you think you'd like to work with. One note, don't look for perfection. You want to get close, but nothing's perfect, so have some grace. Do the best you can. That's why it's nice to have a couple breed options, have a couple breeder options so you can go visit a couple places. Make sure the facilities are nice. The people should be respectful to you, especially if you're new. If they treat you like a newbie, if they treat you down like you don't know anything, I would go away from that person. A good breeder that cares about the animals, they're going to want to know that you're a responsible, good buyer and that you're going to take care of their pups, but they're also going to be patient with you and understanding and helping you make a good decision. So make sure that they're friendly to you and they're willing to work with you and not shortcut your questions or at all be difficult. Let's talk about, do you get a puppy or do you get a grown dog? I highly, highly recommend that you start with a puppy, even if you've never raised one before. You can learn to train a dog. We're not going to talk about training dogs today really, but you can learn to do that. An older dog, unless it really, really fits and you can spend some time with that animal beforehand, you can maybe try that animal out. there's just too many possible complications that you can run into with getting an older dog. So it's highly desirable that you raise that dog in your environment, in your situation, familiar with you, all your people, all your animals. You're going to have the highest degree of success if you do that. So next, some general rules. You're looking at puppies. You want to get to see them as soon as you can, hopefully within 3 weeks or so of them being born. You don't have to, but if you can visit a couple times, that's really, really helpful, and observe them. And there's a few general character traits in animal itself and whatever breed that we've found to be very helpful. And one is just kind of looking for their level of assertiveness versus passiveness, or even aloofness, okay? So an aloof dog is just kind of doesn't care if you're there, all right? It doesn't really pay attention to you when a human comes in. It's not necessarily afraid, it's not necessarily whimpery, but it's also not approaching you. It's just kind of, you know, it's just kind of there. You're kind of there. It's not maybe super aware of its environment, doesn't really care. That's not an animal that we would really want. That dog may be a little more aloof to training, maybe a little more aloof to people, not as attentive and dialed in on you as you want. So I would try to stay away from that. Aggressive dogs are going to be, you know, very obvious, and they're going to be all over. There's usually a dominant dog. They're going to be all over other pups. They might be all over you. They might be very jumpy. They might be very bitey. You got to be careful with that, and you got to observe a little bit more. I'd rather have a little more aggressiveness than passiveness, but I don't want too much aggressiveness. So that's something to be looking for. Passiveness is kind of like that aloofness, and that passiveness is maybe they're not aloof to you, but they're shy, they're whimpery, they pull back real fast even if they're, you know, interested in you. That's not going to be great for a homestead dog either. There might be some good places for that kind of dog, but I wouldn't say it's in the homesteading environment. So you're looking for this balance of a dog that is going to come up, show interest in you, or really any human in the environment, and is going to be curious. They could be a little standoffish, that might be okay, but they're interested, they're discovering, they're wanting to know what you're about, and as they get comfortable with you, they want to engage with you just naturally. That's some real beginnings to the kind of dog that I would like and that we would like on the homestead. And ultimately, especially if you can experience them a couple times in that 3 to 7 weeks, as you see them a couple times, they're going to have that, what I would call assertiveness, and I would lean to slightly aggressive. That's going to be that guard dog. That's going to be that dog that's going to keep an eye out on things. They're going to be, you know, if they're a little wary of you at first, but then as they get comfortable, then they're very engaging. That's that dog that's just like you saw here in the beginning of this video, went, whoa, hey, who's this guy? And I can't even tell if he's a human. He's got this camera and I don't know what's going on. And so she appropriately has said, I'm not sure about this. What are you? You need to stand back a little bit. So you can see that in the pups a little. Just those traits right there lining up with the type of breed that we want, and then that breed hopefully being raised in a similar type environment. When we put those together, we have had great success over the last, I've had great success over the last 30 years of choosing dogs based on that criteria. Annie, come on, come here. Sit. Good sit. Good girl. Having a couple of good, appropriate dogs on the homestead is so rewarding, and they bring so much benefit to your homestead besides companionship. If you follow the core principles I've laid out here, you'll do really well on finding a dog. Just remember that they're not just pets, they have a purpose. And when we choose them for just pets, we don't allow them to fulfill their purpose. We then end up disappointed. The dog ends up not really happy, and it's not a great situation. So we've got to move past this modern mentality of seeing them just as pets and realize that they're bred for a purpose. You have a need. When we line that all up, it becomes a wonderful relationship and a wonderful dynamic that is beautiful and fun, and they still become a wonderful pet and a wonderful friend, but they serve so much on the homestead.